Was this the pad that Zahi was using right here? This one?
Maybe. That might have been the worst podcast I've ever done, but maybe a good one too. Just to see, okay, this is the guy. This is this closed-minded fellow that's been in charge of gatekeeping all the knowledge about
and
Egypt.
Still standing on the same ideas, even after this LiDAR comes out.
The tomography, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
That stuff's fascinating because I've been, even after that podcast, I've been watching more videos with those Italian scientists describing it. They've used it to, this is one of the things that I brought up. One of the temples that they scanned with this was very accurate. And he's like, but this was only 50 feet down. Like, yeah, okay, right.
It started with a podcast. U2 frontman Bono sat down with Joe Rogan for a 3-hour conversation to talk about his Apple TV Plus documentary Stories of Surrender. But the discussion didn't stay focused on music or memoirs for long. Instead, it veered sharply into global politics, specifically the devastating human toll of U.S. foreign aid cuts. Bono, ever the activist, brought up a chilling estimate from a Boston University study led by infectious disease expert Brooke Nichols. According to the research, around 300,000 people, mostly children, could have died due to abrupt cuts in USAID funding, a result of policies introduced during the Trump era. And while Bono admitted the number isn't set in stone, calling it not proven, he also said there's enough data and surveillance to raise serious concern. He painted a grim picture. Food supplies rotting in shipping containers and warehouses, critical medicine stuck in limbo, and life-saving infrastructure left half complete.
Just recent report. It's not proven.
Okay, hold on. I forgot to set this up. Okay. This is Bono, of all people. Bono goes on the Joe Rogan show. And now this new thing that you saw the other day I posted when the guy went on MSNBC said, I think it was yesterday I posted it, where the guy was like, hey, it's 300,000 people dying. They're all dying because of USAID.
I just want to say, we can tell the Elon story and this kind of disciplining by democracy as a story of someone leaving. But there is pain in the wake of these tariffs, and there's pain in the wake of what Elon did. He talked about bringing the wood chipper to USAID. Brooke Nichols, Boston University professor, mathematician, figured out what is the effect of this. They have a tracker, 300,000.
In some of the world's poorest regions. For Bono, the message was clear. This wasn't just bureaucracy. This was a crisis with body counts. But Elon Musk wasn't having it. Within 24 hours, Musk fired back on X, formerly Twitter, and dismissed Bono's claims entirely. In a post that went viral almost instantly, Musk wrote, "He's such a liar, idiot. 0 people have died." It was blunt, brutal, and for many of his followers, it was classic Elon, direct, defiant, and unapologetic. But that response didn't land well with everyone. The internet split down the middle. Supporters of Musk praised him for challenging what they saw as emotional manipulation and political fear-mongering. They argued that Bono, a rock star and celebrity activist, had no place throwing around catastrophic death tolls without irrefutable proof. They viewed Musk as the only one in the room willing to say the emperor had no clothes. But critics had a different take. They accused Musk
1,000 deaths. According to a Boston University professor, because of the aid cuts so far, 200,000 of them children. Okay, Vietnam War, y'all remember that? 60,000 U.S. service members died. This is 5 times more deaths, according to the Boston University study, because of aid cuts since January of this year. So Elon Musk is leaving, but he's also leaving a legacy. But I think it's really important that people remember the court's work. Joe and I have been having a 10-year conversation about our institution standing up or not. The court's work, still, not perfectly, there's problems, but courts work, lawsuits work. and pressure works, and people raising their voice works. And it's not just that Washington always wins. I think the people always win.
Sorry, I'd rather that money be spent on Americans. Wave the flag, red, white, and blue. Let's focus on America.
Gross insensitivity of downplaying the very real consequences of aid cuts in vulnerable regions. To them, his comment was not just factually reckless, it was morally bankrupt. Joe Rogan himself had a more nuanced take during the podcast. While he allowed Bono to make his case, he also voiced skepticism about how foreign aid is managed. Rogan acknowledged that some organizations under USAID had done real, meaningful work, like building wells in Congo or delivering medicine to isolated areas. But he also pointed out that the aid system is bloated with inefficiency. He called USAID a money laundering operation and criticized it for operating with little oversight, no accountability, and, in his words, no receipts. That's where the conversation really got complicated, because both arguments could be true. Yes, aid can be mismanaged. Yes, corruption exists, but that doesn't mean the humanitarian need disappears. And Bono leaned into that paradox hard. There has to be a way to keep the aid without the fraud.
On America, well, Bono decides it's now his pet project to complain about the poor kids dying in other countries, which is in itself kind of weird. But he posts or talks about the exact same study. Now listen to this. I told you yesterday, or you heard this guy from MSNBC, I've got this study from Boston University that says, well, who the hell wrote it? But now all that has to be done is for people to begin talking about this thing. And everybody's like, hey, did you know, by the way? Well, here comes Bono.
Just recent report. It's not proven, but the surveillance enough suggests 300,000 people have already died from just this cut off, this hard cut of USAID. So there's food rotting in boats, in warehouses. There is this will not, you will not be happy, no American will, but there is, I think it's 50,000 tons of food that are stored in Djibouti, South Africa, Dubai, and wait for it, Houston, Texas.
Insisted. In his view, the tragedy wasn't just about politics, it was about lost potential, the potential to save lives, the potential to be a force for good in the world. The kind of potential, he argued, that once defined America's global image. Then Bono took a swipe at the narrative that budget cuts were necessary or even real. The ironic thing is, he said, even though Elon Musk and the Doge Committee have proposed all these budget cuts, none of them have actually been implemented. They've cut nothing. In other words, the suffering is real, but the promised fiscal discipline? Not so much. Later in the interview, Bono reflected on a deeper concern, that America's identity itself is shrinking. I get it, he said. I get the frustration with bureaucracy and the pen pushers. But I want to remind Americans of the size of their country. And I'm not talking about geography, I'm talking about the size of the idea. He described America as a concept big enough to fit the entire world. When it becomes an island rather than a continent, he warned, America stops being America. That sentiment struck a nerve with listeners, and not always in a good way. Some accused Bono of virtue signaling. Others said he was using emotional arguments to defend a system that is demonstrably flawed. But his supporters applauded him for sticking to his convictions, for reminding the world that human suffering shouldn't be reduced to talking points or budget line items. And meanwhile, Elon Musk continued to tweet. In the hours that followed, Musk doubled down, retweeting memes, statistics, and commentary from supporters who backed his claim. He didn't issue a correction. He didn't elaborate. He didn't clarify whether he meant no one died at all, or just that the Boston University figure was inflated. He left it hanging, bold and blunt. 0 people have died. And whether you agree with him or not, that statement had its intended effect. It dominated headlines. Now, this isn't the first time Musk has picked a fight with a public figure, and it probably won't be the last. But this clash wasn't just about two famous men disagreeing. It opened up a much larger debate about how we value facts, feelings, and lives in political conversations. Do we demand rigorous data before we act on human suffering? Or do we take preemptive action to prevent worst-case scenarios, even if the numbers aren't conclusive yet? It's a question without easy answers, and that's what makes this so volatile. Because behind the headlines and the hashtags, there are real people affected by these decisions. People in remote villages who don't know what USAID is, who've never heard of Joe Rogan or Elon Musk or Doge, but who might be waiting on a food shipment that never comes, or medicine that never arrives, or a well that never gets built. In the end, maybe that's the part of the story that matters most. Not who shouted loudest, not who had the better zinger on social media, but whether those in power, whether they're billionaires, rock stars, or podcasters, can look beyond the politics long enough to see the people. Because no matter which side of the debate you're on, one thing's for sure: the world is watching. And when the stakes are this high, words matter. Accountability matters. And silence. Silence can be deadly. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think Bono's numbers were exaggerated? Or was Musk completely out of line with his response? Let's talk about it.